Hey, what's up?
Welcome to vlog some number we stopped counting at
12. 12.
John's kept counting. Okay,
Boom.
so we promised we were going to do a theme week on graduating between Hero and Demigod and then between Demigod and God. So that's what we're doing.
Yep.
There are a lot of questions about it. A lot of them are covering the same ground. So I may not read them verbatim, but you'll know who you are if you're out there. So let's just start with Hero-to-Demigod and go up from there. Yeah.
Yes.
Alrighty. What are your metrics, if there are any, for when a Legend 4 Scion is ready to make the leap to Demigodhood? I know it's driven by the story, but is there anything going on with the stats behind the scenes?
I actually make the Demigod change less driven by the story. I guess I kind of moved away from doing it exactly like when it's story appropriate to when that character has done appropriate things. And kind of less... It's still not something they buy, but...
It's more about what that character specifically has done rather than where the whole story is.
Yeah. So the first time I went through, I had everybody go up Legend exactly the same time. And that's the first game.
It worked fine.
It worked well. I think it I think it kept everybody happy and fair, and it was good. But as I've run more games, I think it's more it's more realistic, and it's more fun if there's a little what's that word that's like kinetic?
Hitting it organic?
Sure. No, not really. No, more like electric, more.
No.
But the kinetic implies movement.
I don't know.
Okay. If you were watching a movie and you were like, "Oh, a lot of stuff is happening here, in a good way. There's good momentum." Electricity. I don't know. I think it's better if there's a little bit of some people going ahead of others. As long as you keep it around the same and you're making sure your players aren't getting jealous and some people aren't getting upset. And you can solve that by saying stuff ahead of time. And
sometimes we don't tell them. Like, we're like, hey, player X, come to this other room with us for a minute, and just tell them then. So the rest of the table don't even know they went up Legend until they figure it out.
Yeah. Until they go back to the table and erase their fucking Legend and they're like...
Yes, well, sometimes they're terrible. But you don't want to ever have people be too far apart in Legend because then obviously they can't really function together. But if it's just the one, it's not a big deal.
One, maybe two, very rarely. And as long as your players know that ahead of time and are cool with it, I think it's exciting.
Yeah, it rewards them for taking risks and doing good stuff themselves as a character. So that they, if I put more into this and I do more awesome stuff and I survive, then I'll go up much faster.
Yeah, and I think you have to be really well practiced with it to what you and have a good sense in your mind of what involves what is worth going up in Legend, or like I have a tick sheet and I just kind of take when I think they've done something appropriate. I take it off when I get to X amount, then they go up in Legend on a really big thing.
Sometimes it's just stuff that they never do, so that's really cool that they tried something outside their box, and sometimes it's something they do all the time, but they did it so big this one time, or it was so important.
Yeah. I think the pitfall is the same pitfall that early STs have with stunting, is you can't give it all the combat stuff. You're like, oh, you ripped that dude's head off, that was awesome, and I actually very rarely give it for stunting. Or for physical stuff.
Yeah, because sometimes, because your combat character's job is to rip people's heads off, so unless he does that in a way that is so cool and different from everything else he's doing most normally, it's not really that special. Yeah. It's still really cool, but
like,
it's hard to make
to give an example, if the combat character just described really well how he went in and killed 5 guys, one Legend lower than him, without anybody else able to do it, or did it in the middle of a fight where everyone else is also fighting, that's just his job. But if he told the rest of the group to stand back when they were about to fight, like the big bad or something, the guy one Legend higher than him, and he's like, no, I'm gonna go toe to toe with this guy. Especially if he's Valor. If he's a Valor guy, and he goes, I'm gonna just one-on-one this guy. It wouldn't be fair if you guys got in the way. That would be really cool. That would be
because otherwise you just have the combat characters are always ahead of everybody. Yeah. Because even when you're really good about keeping track of social stats, if there's ever combat in your games, that's what they're doing all the time. So Marcus James would have gone Legend 12, but everyone else was Legend 8.
So yeah, watch out for that. And then I think you can do a more organic, cool system with going up in Legend. But they also asked about stats.
Yes, what stats are going on when you jump?
Remember I was talking about I do tick marks. based on like really cool stuff they do. I give bonus tick marks if they max out their purview.
Okay.
So by max out, it just means get to the top level. I give a couple bonus points. So if they're very purview focused, if they have lots of kind of control over the world and the things around them and the forces of nature, I give them a small bonus, and that helps out people who want to focus on that stuff instead of the stats, because the stats make it so you can do the other stuff easier. And the boons, sometimes do as well, but the stats definitely make everything easier, and they're a thing that people run for a lot.
Yeah, and getting your PSP purview up and maxed up is also usually a big thing. Not necessarily because you need to have it. You don't have to have it if you don't want to, but growing into that, being part of my pantheon also helps out some.
I give just one tick mark for in my nebulous tick mark thing that you don't know about for maxing an ability that wasn't previously maxed, like learning the most you can in an ability. So.
Right. So it's not as much a question of they have to have a certain number of points in all these things.
Yeah, it's not like God where I have like some hard caps and stuff.
Yeah, it's more making sure that, have they developed into something that really is kind of a concrete core things that they're doing, that they're ready to jump to Demigod and focus on.
Yeah. That's a lot with playing, has the game been at Legend 4 too long? Are people getting restless? I think go quite a while at Legend 4. But you do have to keep an eye on, you just have to, as the ST, be very empathic and know how people are feeling, and you can solve it by going ahead and going up to Legend 5, or just talk it out with them and figure stuff out.
Yeah, especially since we usually have, there's always like one player that like really wants to be the next Legend, and they're not comfortable, like they don't want to wait that long, and other players who maybe don't care that much. So sometimes it's just a matter of what can I find in the story for this one impatient player to do, that so that he doesn't feel like he's bored or like he's never going to do anything because he's not up a Legend yet. So, what else do we have to talk about? At the Demigod upgrade, another person asks, do you allow players at that time to get birthrights that are higher than 5 dots? Do you cap it somewhere?
Yeah, totally. But they also don't get to choose their birthrights at Demigod, so... They're
being given to them by, parents or whoever it is that's kind of watching out for them or following their progress. So, you might get them from your parents, a lot of them do, but you might also get them from someone else in the Pantheon or somebody with an interest in you.
Yeah, I generally do a bunch of different stuff with Demigod upgrade.
Yeah, so, but they can definitely go above 5 at that point.
Yeah.
Okay.
What are we calling it now? Not our armory, our...
Reliquary?
Reliquary of souls. When we do a reliquary, that'll have some, like, appropriate demigod level relics, and so any of those would be fine.
Right. Okay. Are there requirements story-wise for players to go up to demigod? I mean, basically the same stuff we talked about the first time, the first question, where doing cool stuff, like, just because you've been a hero for a long time doesn't mean you get to automatically go be demigod if you're not doing anything interesting.
Yeah.
So, do epic things,
I mean,
risk death.
You don't want the person who hasn't, been really active to get bored and not get to do anything, but that's why I think they should be far behind. If someone's not participating, they shouldn't get kind of dragged along.
Exactly. It's not it's not really fair to the players that are working really hard and are building really cool stories, and then they have this guy who doesn't really have a personality or doesn't have a story or just kind of sits there, he's coasting along. And some players just do that because they don't know what to do, so you can always work with those players and be like, what can we do that would be more interesting for you, or why is it that you're not participating? You just need more time to get comfortable. But for some players, they just need to realize that I have to do things to get ahead, and then sometimes they do. We usually have we've had that before where, a player kind of coasted along until he realized that he wasn't going to hit God until he did some stuff, and then he started doing stuff. So it can help out when you have those players that are a little bit slow on the uptake on doing those things. So moving on up to God, how do you handle this step to godhood for graduation? It has to be very special, more than just a few dots. So how do you make the graduation to God a special event? A lot of stuff happens.
Yeah. I did solo stories with every player. It was like 4 to 6 hours with each player when they hit God, and I did a whole separate thing for them. We met up and ran like a whole story where usually their parent or someone who was interested in them got a lot of other gods together, and they went off and did something amazing. I think usually I do with a a goal that both the player, the character, and the kind of the group they were working with all had to go do something very personal for the player, but like got them also intertwined with some politics with those gods that were there, and then they all went off and did some usually Titan reinforcing thing.
Yeah, we've had people have to go do some big event against the Titans. We've had people have to go, if they were Titan corrupted, shake that off before they could become gods. We've had people be like, we need to go rescue this other god that's in trouble.
Yeah.
Like, stuff that is really big picture. They couldn't do it by themselves, but for whatever reason, because of their story, they're a central figure in it, so they get to go do it with some other people.
We did, I did 10 of them.
Yeah, we did a lot.
Yeah.
I think of several.
Yeah, so that was intense, but, I guess I only did 9, I think, because Kettle didn't
That's
get
right,
one.
because Kettle,
Yeah.
things happened to Kettle. She had to go up to God suddenly, but, can we give an example? Is there one of those that you think is a really good example of how you do that?
I'm trying to think of, Jeff's was the easiest, I did it first. Not easiest, but memory-wise. I'm trying to remember who all was involved.
The Handsome Gods Club was involved.
Yeah, right. But they went to, Angus and, Trosha and Apollo and Naisha, maybe Juan at that point. They all got together and went with him as a new aspiring super hot dude, Freyr. No, Freyr wasn't around because he was in a tree.
Wasn't there. He wasn't there.
Anyway, they got all together and they went to go save his Jeff's son, who was
He'd been
somewhere
kidnapped by a Titan Avatar and was being held in Tamwan-Chen.
Oh,
and they
right.
were worried he was going to be turned into a Tamwan-Chen creature if they didn't get him out fast enough.
So it was something, it was like getting to wrap up a story with that Jeff was super involved in without having to have the whole team go do something they actually couldn't do. But with a lot of other gods' helps, they were able to go in and get the kid out.
Especially when it's just the one PC, that means that if you have like a 4-god team around one PC, they can keep him alive, but they're not going to keep 5 PCs alive.
Yeah.
So if you want them to live through it, it's easier to just have 1 or 2 people there.
So it made a really cool thing. The gods all gave him like lots of buffs, and they all went in together and big
battles,
big giant star battle, and then he gets his kid, and it's really emotional.
And it was very like he got to be the one who really finally reclaimed his child and defeated the Titan Avatar. And it wasn't that he could never have done that by himself, but it gave him a taste of this is what gods do. This is the god level of stuff that you have to deal with. Here's a bunch of other gods to crutch you through it this first time. But this is serious business, and it's kind of giving you that first taste of this is how gods are going to have to deal with things. And we've done Woody's God story. Actually, Jeff was in Woody's God story as a god who's already there helping him. Yeah, because
Jeff was kind of like 2 years ahead of him in the game time. But yeah, so that's an example. That's what we generally do with them. It's a big giant event. So you're right. It shouldn't just be a normal thing. It's a super important game changing event.
And I'm not sure, this question's kind of vague about what you're looking for when it comes to what happens when you go up to God, but there is obviously the stat upgrades, which I'm sure everybody kind of knows about. We've talked about how we do those too, some.
A little.
With the requirements. Should we actually go through that since we're here?
I don't think so.
It's a lot of numbers.
It's a lot
but
of
anyway,
stuff. Yeah, just numbers boring.
You do get, stat upgrades automatically. You do get birthright upgrades, which just like the demigod ones, you're not really... We do give you more opportunity to choose those. Like, you kind of be like, this is the kind of thing I want, and then... As a storyteller, John will usually then whip up, this is how that happens. Yeah. Is this who does that for you? Sometimes there's secret bonus powers or catches involved. Yeah,
there's a thing I have them submit to me of which of the types of birthrights they like the most, and they can put notes in there of what kind of stuff they imagine that birthright might do. Yeah.
So it's not exactly what they asked for, and it may not come from what they're thinking, but you get a little more input on kind of what your new birthrights will be.
But I think generally everyone was pretty happy with them. There were things they probably wouldn't have thought of on their own, and so. Yeah.
When you say to a player, what do you want for birthrights, you're always going to get kind of a sky's the limit that you have to bring down. But then there's Fate Bonds switch over to the cult system, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
At God.
That's a big change.
We haven't really done a write-up on the cult system yet, so it's a little difficult to explain. But
yeah, so it's too much work.
Just as a generality, what happens is that your individual Fate Bonds, you have at least 10 guys that all believe in you, are going to become cult Fate Bonds. So instead of having individual people as your Fate Bonds anymore, you're just going to be Fate Bound to a cult, which is going to be at least 50 people that believe the same kind of thing about you. And so then gods accrue cults instead of
instead of like a Fate Bond where it's just like, this guy is your bodyguard or something. it's a full cult that like gets together and worships you and does stuff for you, and
or at least believes in you. Maybe they're scared of you. They want you to leave, which is
or
one of
you.
Will's cults doesn't want him to be there ever.
Yeah.
But
they pray for him to not come.
yes, good old stay away, please. So you get that kind of, it shifts kind of from a more personal, interpersonal with humans idea to a big cult one, which is, you shifting from being still kind of human to being completely a god, and people relate to gods differently than they do to even demigods. So, is there anything else really fancy that happens at God?
I don't think so.
What's over there?
I mean, lots of stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
so much stuff.
It's hard to explain.
It's
More specific questions would help with this, but I'm not sure what you're looking for. So, but just in general, you need to make it a big story event, and it never hurts to make it all about that character. Like, you don't even need to bring the other characters if you don't have a reason for them to be there. And we've actually had the players, sometimes we just have done it privately, sometimes the other players come to spectate and not be in it, but just watch because it's kind of fun to see what's happening. And, whatever works for your group in that case. But, yeah, it's all about that one person coming into their godhood, and you need to kind of make that a big deal and make that something that matters to them personally because it's something in their story, and that matters to the world because they're becoming part of that whole divinity thing that they've only been sort of looking at from below until now.
Yep.
So I think that is all we have to talk about.
Anything else? Okay.
Upgrades. That's all the questions we have. Is there anything else about upgrades you want to include?
No, I don't think so.
That's
everything.
Yeah. So that's our upgrade spiel.
Yeah.
There's something that happens so seldom in Scion because they're only happening twice over the life of your character. And
yeah, I mean, there should be big important events, and
yeah, they should be really big and important, but they're also not something that happens all the time, so that you have to constantly be ready to do exactly the same thing and not.
Yeah.
There's not really any danger of being like, well, this person's God story was way cooler than that person's God story, as long as you put enough into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work for this too.
It is. It's a lot of work.
So if you want to do it and do it really well, just get prepared to do a lot of work on your own. But as long as the player is also doing a lot of work, like that's why I do like a lot of sheets and stuff, because I know I'm putting in the extra time, so they can too if they want to make it work.
Yeah, and that helps us then see what they're looking for when it gets to their god. What are they hoping to get? What are they hoping to be? That's the purpose of you guys. Some of you guys have seen those worksheets on our website that are like, what's your name as a god? What do the cultures think of you? Kind of, what are your most important myths, so that we know what they're aiming for when they're becoming a god. We also have to kind of make it up. Yeah. So
cool.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So if you notice, though, that my mood changed slightly in the middle of the thing, I just got a text from Matthew that says he's not making it to game tonight, and so now we don't have game. So
Matt, the internet now knows that you just ruined everything.
Yeah. So if you watch this, Matt, you know that I know. I actually haven't. I just heard from Thomas. I don't know what you said yet. Maybe something horrible happened, and then I'll feel bad. But for now. Okay, but thanks, everybody, for watching. That's a small side trip to ribbing Matt.
Something we do pretty frequently.
Yeah, but he drives 90 minutes to come play the game, so
yeah, we can't be too mad at him.
No, we can't.
All right.
But yeah, so we'll see all you guys next week. Feel free to ask questions. I don't think we have a theme for next week.
No.
We've been chopping through questions, so they're kind of. Are we running dry?
We're not running dry, but like
we're running. I'm running out of things I thought were cool to talk about.
We have a lot of questions, but they're now vlog questions, so. Well, if you have any that you think might be good for the vlog, or that you'd like to hear us talk about and watch John yell about, please let us know.
Yeah, I haven't gotten emotional about anything yet.
Yeah. Alrighty, so thanks everybody.
Thanks, we'll see you later.